And we are live. Pop-up show with Richard Wright.
Going
Never
on,
wrong.
y'all? How's everybody doing? Oh, happy holidays. I don't know how many Black folks celebrate Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving or however you want to put it, but Thursday is a holiday, so I just
Sure.
pray you and yours have a good time, whether you ain't doing nothing or whether you're feasting or whatever. But we wanted to come and do a show tonight because chances are this is gonna probably be the only show this week. Comics with Rich is on hiatus, so pop-up show is what we're doing. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Black love.
Or as I like to call it, hashtag Black Super Love.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to go back to Marauders 13. And the reason I want to go back to Marauders 13 is because Marauders 13 was a book that was kind of a prelude, or no, not a prelude, but it was connected to the House of Swords, I think it is, X of Swords story run.
Right.
And in that particular story, there is a weapon in Wakanda. And it was called, was it Stormbreaker?
Storm. It was like Stormbreaker or something like that.
Yeah. So Storm had to acquire this magnificent weapon, and she had to go to Wakanda to get it. And of course, she had no problem getting in Wakanda because she had a relationship with the Wakandan people, particularly the royalty, and of course, she was at one time married to Black Panther.
She was the queen of Wakanda.
She was the queen. And so going in, wanting to acquire this weapon, she talks to Queen Mother, talks to Shuri. Black Panther is kind of out doing Black Panther things.
Saving the world, little things with the Avengers.
He was just doing, when he doesn't, he's kind of like me, you know what I'm saying? I like to kind of lead a house from time to time. And while I love being at home, I'd rather be someplace sometimes. So that's what he was doing.
He was off at work. He was off at work.
He was out there doing his thing. So he's not there. They invite her in. She tells them what she needs. Well, can you wait? Let's have dinner. Okay. She's family. She's practically family. They sit, they have dinner, they talk. But she's like, I really need to get this. I really need this weapon. And so as a result, she gets into it with Shuri. They throw hands. And she prevails. She takes the weapon. And as soon as she gets ready to leave, who shows up? But T'Challa.
My man's in them.
So T'Challa's looking at it like, I don't know if we've seen, there's got to be a handful of times we've actually seen T'Challa raise his voice or just throw a fit. If there's any time for him to throw a fit, this might have been the time, but he doesn't do that. He literally keeps his cool, tells the King's army, yeah, everybody chill. Okay, Storm, that's what you doing? She couldn't take no for an answer. Like, okay, go. He lets her go. Now, the Black Panther that we know and love, if it's anything Black Panther loves more than himself or his people, you'd be hard to find it because he really loves Wakanda and he really loves his mother and his sister. But we know he has a thing for Storm. Storm kind of makes T'Challa a little weak He's a little weak in the knees behind Storm. I don't know if it's the blue eyes and that long white hair. I don't know what it is, or that payal. Whatever it is.
Look. It's Storm.
Whatever it is, it got my man. I mean, T'Challa, the king of the dead, the king of Wakanda, the Black Panther. Okay, we'll give you that work. Throw hands, got technology, but Storm. if there's a weakness, if Black Panther has a weakness, it's Aurora Monroe.
Facts.
So I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about Black love and that particular story. But before we talk about that story, I want us to really think about, you know, when they did the Black Panther or the Storm book, Eric Jerome Dickey, this book here, when they did the solo run,
That's a classic.
Eric Jerome Dickey love story. This is if they're going to do a Black Panther Storm in the movies, this should be what they do, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. I know some of y'all screaming, "Don't war, don't war." I'm like, if Storm is gonna show up, I want to see her, T'Challa, doing their thing.
That would require an origin story. I don't think Marvel's prepared to do that.
Clearly. So, but we do have the multiverse. So, who's to say that maybe Coogler, one of the shows that he's doing, maybe that comes up. But of course, we got the news that they're not recasting T'Challa in the 616. So we will see T'Challa, but we just will not see him in the 616. For my Black Panther people, I know y'all feelings are hurt. I know you want to go up to Kevin Feige's house and protest. I know you want to start printing out T'Challa Matters bumper stickers, to go next to your Black Lives Matter.
T'Challa Matters. Wait, pause. How have I not thought of that? T'Challa Matters.
Hey,
that's going viral tomorrow.
I'm gonna need y'all to. I need run me my coins when y'all start printing.
That's going viral tomorrow. T'Challa Matters.
Run me my coins. Y'all run away with that idea. So anyway, but when Eric Jerome Dickey, I don't know, for those who don't know, Eric Jerome Dickey was a writer, a Black writer who did a lot of Black relationship type books, love books, stories. Great writer. I've read a couple of his books, and they're actually pretty good. And the dude was the truth. I think may rest in peace, because he just passed a couple years ago, I want to say. But Marvel snagged him to do this book, this story. And that goes to show you how respected his writing was, because he was not, this is his first book. This is the only comic he's ever did. Okay. But they respected his art and his craft that much that they felt comfortable giving it. So for all of you people out there who think that you need to be a comic book writer to write comics, here's the evidence that you really don't. Now, in this particular story, we're getting a little bit of some of that, a little bit of it, iteration of it, if you will, in the Black Panther Legends run, where they run, T'Challa meets Storm when they're kids. And so that's pretty cool. This is issue 2. This is the Joshua Cassara variant for that particular comic book right there. And so it's a picture of Storm and T'Challa. I'm trying to get the glare off of it. Yeah.
That's a great cover.
Yeah, it is. I had to have it. I didn't even look at the A cover. I saw it, I grabbed it. So. But if you got to look at the times that when Eric Jerome Dickey was doing his thing, Black love was a real thing in art, and there were, you know, Eric Jerome Dickey was part of that, I would say, renaissance of Black writers at the time. You can go to your Barnes and Noble and go to a section of Black fiction, and it's pretty big. And Eric Jerome Dickey was one of those brothers that was responsible for that. Fast forward to Marauders 13, where our dear sister, Miss Ayala, I'm gonna call her Miss Ayala because I don't know her. You know, I don't want to be too formal. I want to say Vita, but she writes this story, and she got my man out here in these streets looking weak.
Oh Lord.
And
I feel myself getting triggered.
And here's the thing. The reason why I bring this up is because in literature, there are very few writers who are of, I would say, notoriety. Alice Walker, Terry McMillan, and Vita. What do those three sisters have in common?
They're Black?
That's one thing. They have stories that have put brothers in a pickle, if you will. So when you look at writers today, who is the premier fiction writer of our time?
Dude, that's a tough.
I'll wait.
The premier fiction writer of our time?
Yeah, and I'll wait. Matter of fact, the sun might come up for somebody to come up with an answer.
There's lots of answers. It depends on what you consider to be the most important writing. I mean, that can be.
Well, Toni Morrison passed away, so you can't say Toni Morrison.
Are we talking about just Black writers?
Well, yeah, Black writer right now.
That's someone who's alive right now.
Yeah, Terry McMillan is writing books, but nobody cares. Alice Walker hadn't wrote nothing since The Color Purple.
Michael Dyson.
That's Dyson's funny to me. And the reason why I say Dyson is funny to me is that he is someone who he kind of in my opinion, he piggybacks on thought that is already in pop culture. All he does is give his commentary on what's quote unquote.
And your criteria is someone who's alive right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could argue Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean,
Coates got books, man, but he doesn't have anything that I'm looking for a signature. Name a signature book, and I would say the last 5 years
of fiction.
Yeah, like I said, I'll wait.
A book of fiction, last 5 years. You got me, dude.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. I just don't think that there is one. And you know, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where we don't have a premier or a writer that has written something that is so profound. Matter of fact, the last book, in my opinion, is part of the new Jim Crow. uh, the sister's name escapes me that wrote it. But that book is probably in the last, maybe, and that book is probably older than 5 years now. I even think about it. But the New Jim Crow, that book, I'm not sure about anything else. But what I'm getting at is that at the time when Eric Jerome Dickey was doing his thing and writing books, because he's probably got about 15 to 20 titles under his belt.
Right.
And love was the common theme in all of his books, relationships and things of that nature. And so now today you really don't have that. You have a lot of funny things going on in the Black community when it comes to things like love. And so tonight I want to talk about Black love in comics. What does it look like? What has it looked like? And why don't we really have it in comics, probably like we should,
So we should touch upon some relations. We mentioned Storm and Black Panther.
Right.
And if we're really talking about Black, here's the thing. At the beginning of this, I specified hashtag Black Super Love.
Yep.
Because I use that term, and I've used that term to signify the relationship between two Black superpowered characters. Not just a Black superhero who has a relationship with someone else, like a regular normal person. I'm talking two Black superpowered people together. That is not something that happens often. Our man Herschel would probably say, the first one in Black superhero comics that he likes to talk about is Mal Duncan and Bumblebee in DC Comics. They even eventually, although that story has been retconned so many times, between the two of them with the various crises that DC has gone through, so much so that at one point they were married with children, and that got retconned out of existence, which is sad because they were, I can't think of another, at that time, another Black superhero family. I was going to say Black Lightning, but I think that came far after that. There's just not a lot of it. I mean, we talk about in our culture about the breakup of the Black nuclear family and how that's just something that's too prevalent in our society. And we have, we always have issues with regard to Black relationships and positive Black relationships and seeing that. And we don't have a lot of that in comics. I mean, I could name lots of characters that have had relationships, like Luke Cage had Dr. Claire Temple. Blade had a girl that he was dating in Tomb of Dracula. But in terms of actual one-on-one Black superpower relationships, not a lot of them.
Yeah. And I bring that up because when you look at Spider-Man,
yeah,
you got two females that stand out in Spider-Man's history. Mary
Black
Jane,
Cat. Yeah,
and Gwen Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I'm, as a Black guy, as a comic book head, that I can run Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane off my lips speaks to the popularity, one, of Spider-Man, and two, the visibility of love in Spider-Man's life or in Peter Parker's life.
Yeah.
And how that was important and central to who he was historically as a character. And that's, we talk about representation and how we need it. And we've gotten a lot of Black faces in books, on covers now.
Yeah.
But now we need representation in terms of seeing their humanity, through the lens of love. I remember about a month or two ago, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the death of Gwen Stacy in the comics and how that was a big deal. it was like it was significant to the character and to the story arc. And you think about it, and it's like, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But we don't really have that. And so you look at our characters, and you brought up Black Lightning, which is funny to me because even though Isabella claims that Lynn, his ex-wife, should always be connected to him, and that's his true love. How he had an issue with Brian Hill over what he was doing with him in the Black Batman and the Outsiders run. They were divorced. Out the gate, he was already a black man. He was already divorced. He may have been connected to her, but the dynamic that Isabella laid out for Black Lightning or Jefferson Pierce was Lynn was his ex. So we see a man that is broken on a different level. May have had hands, may have been powerful, but emotionally he had issues because, again, Lynn, the quote unquote love of his life, is not with him. And so, we've had some things with like Blue Marvel and Monica Rambeau, but nothing really quote unquote major. And I just think, honestly, Marvel has not made that investment in their black characters like that. Because when you do that, you set up to where you're asking your readers to care about this person and who this person's connected to. But with black characters in particular, that's not the case. It's like when we look at, we already know who's the first family at Marvel.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Reed Richards
gave me this video to play. Go ahead.
So we have a situation where Reed Richards is married or getting married to Sue Storm. And throughout the whole Fantastic Four history, that has been the constant. In Reed Richards has not, even though Sue may have had eyes for Namor or eyes for T'Challa, they have been connected to each other.
Right.
Reed and Sue. Now, people bring up Misty Knight and Sam Wilson. We've gotten some of that, but we get these little tidbits of these heroes and doing their thing with one another, whatever. But we don't have anything that we can like really hang our hat on, because even with the first family at Marvel, it goes beyond Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. It goes on with Franklin Richards. The fact that we know Franklin Richards more than we know Blue Marvel's sons is kind of a travesty.
Yeah.
When Milestone introduced relationships or a relationship in Static 25 with Virgil making out with his girlfriend and getting ready to make love, and there was a condom on the counter. DC was like, "Oh, people not ready for it." It's like, okay, you have, you stopped selling your comics to kids a long time ago, but okay, I'll play along. That one picture you just showed up there with Spawn and Wanda. That's another situation. Spawn, or Al Simmons, who was married to a woman named Wanda when he was murdered, he lives in hell, or he's secluded in hell for 5 years. Comes back, his best friend marries his woman. So we're used to a lot of brokenness, or the display of broken families in comics.
Right.
And so, I will stop short to say it's deliberate, because sometimes they want to be quote unquote real, or they want to be authentic. And at the same time, it's kind of like, don't you guys want to see something that's going to last? You know what I'm saying? And that's all I'm saying. Can we get something that's going to last? I mean, it's like the we don't really have a family, a nuclear family that we can look at on the black side of it.
Especially, well, not in mainstream comics. I mean, you really kind of, like we have the antagonist with the story specifically is about a black superpowered family.
Right.
But for the most part, the mainstream comics, Marvel and DC, are well overdue for a superpowered black family that is consistently within the Marvel universe. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
Doesn't exist. We have the Backians, which is one of the families listed in this video that's playing. The Backians were in the Nova series.
Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, Infinity Gauntlet, right there.
Yep.
I mean, how rare this is one of those books that Rico points out to us all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. This is a fully nuclear black superpowered family. Mother, father, children, even a dog.
Yep.
This image right here is so damn powerful by itself.
Yeah. That cover, man. The only thing I don't like about that cover with them on it is that it's in black.
Well, yeah, they're kind of silhouetted, so you can't really just see them all that well either.
Yeah. And so part of me is, while I love that cover and hate I have one copy of that comic.
Right.
And hate that I only got one copy. That's a comic that, you can't find. And I think people know the significance of it for that reason. You just can't find it in the wild. You can find the Infinity Gauntlet run. You can find that run. You can find 1 through 5, but you can't find that particular second print, because that's what it is.
The second print is what you're referring to. Yes.
Yeah, it's a second print. So, but we don't have that nuclear on a mainstream level. We're starting to get it, like you said, with the antagonist. But and here's the problem with that. The problem with that is it's Kickstarter stuff. So it's not stuff that's going to actually, it'll probably. I heard that they've optioned the show, and so it may at some point come to light on a visual screen. But like for kids that are reading comic books now, they won't see it until the show, because you gotta buy it off the website, and it's $10 a book.
Right.
And as much as I want to support independent book, that's an issue. That is really an issue. But it costs to support our people. It is what it is. But shout out to my man Varnell Young and Delta Dogs, because that comic is about a family of superpowered beings, but they happen to be all cousins. So we have familiar type stories and things of that nature, but love, romance among black empowered superpowered beings is just not, there it is. It's just not seen a whole lot. It's just not seen a whole lot. And images like this should be the norm. That is a beautiful, beautiful cover. Beautiful cover. So
Great
yeah,
series. Great series.
no doubt that too.
This is
Anything
the
with
one I
that,
was talking about.
right? Mm-hmm.
The family. Um, I mean, you've got a black superpowered family in front of the most powerful man in the universe, Thanos.
Yep.
His Infinity Gauntlet.
Yep, man. Definitely leaves a lot to be desired when you think about it, because again, um,
This is a cover I should probably get in a poster or something. It's just a dope image.
I'm be honest. I want that cover on a shirt.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
on a
for real.
shirt. So, what it is, what it is. So, as far as the black love goes, let's just try to put that out there, and maybe the DC spy or the Marvel spies will
So
put it
what are our
in.
current black love stories that we have in comics right now?
Uh,
Sitting
I
here looking at
mean,
my stats.
Miles is isn't Miles? Don't Miles got a girlfriend, or
Starling, yeah.
you know?
Miles has Starling.
Um, what else? Not sure what they're doing with Black Panther, but
Well, I mean, you got Black Panther #1 today. You
shout
can you
out
can do
to
that flex. Go ahead and do that flex, bro.
yeah, there it is, Black Panther #1.
Making everybody jealous right now.
Yep, there it is, Black Panther #1. Alex Ross on the cover. Amazing. This guy here is incredible, man.
That's why I had to
And
get the poster that's behind me.
what I love about this cover too is this cover has Blade on it.
Yeah.
Has Captain Marvel on it, Thor, She-Hulk, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider. Um, yeah, and the Dora on the flip side of it. So
You know what's interesting? Milestone Comics did some solicits recently about their upcoming books. And they mentioned what's upcoming. We know that they've alluded to a relationship in Icon, right? Icon and Zayomara, who's
right,
this Wonder Woman type of character.
right.
And then we also know that in Static, there's going to be Static at least hitting on Rocket in a future issue. I say hitting on because the expression that she had in that brilliant cover was, nah, son, you ain't got no game, Virgil.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate the fact that Milestone's even doing that.
Right. Milestone is they're doing their thing. I haven't had a chance to read issue 4 Static yet. I haven't been to the comic. I haven't picked up my pull list yet. So there's a lot of books that I need to read that I'm behind on.
Do you still have a pull list?
I do.
Well, you have a pull list, but you're pulling out of the mainstream books.
I'm pulling out pretty much. I did get the last Batman 117. That's in my box.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pulling out pretty much just to see. I'm gonna challenge myself to see if I can do it. Now I'm gonna collect them. I'm gonna get the BP stuff. I'm gonna get the milestones. But outside of that, I'm probably gonna try to stay away from anything else. The challenge, the idea is to see if I can withdraw from the big two on a major level. Now, of course, I'm interested to see what direction they take Green Lantern in.
I was saying, you don't want to follow what's going on with Green Lantern or Black Manta. Well, Black Manta is a limited series.
Yeah, it's a limited series, and that's the thing about that. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're getting these little these good books, but and only going to be around for a while. Did you know that Swamp Thing was slated for 12 issues, but they're extending it?
Well, when the books are successful, they're willing to extend it.
And what did that say about ours?
Look, when Priest did his initial run on Black Panther, a lot of people failed to realize that that was a Marvel Knights run initially. It was only supposed to be a limited series. The Marvel Knights run was only supposed to be a short series. But the book was sold well enough that they extended it and made it a regular series.
Which is weird too, man, because that particular run, it's hard to distinguish. That's what, volume 4?
Yes.
Yeah, because the earlier part of that run, the fonts or the
3.
books are different. 3?
Volume 3.
All I know is that I have a tough time when I go to like a comic book shop and I'm trying to fill my run or my, because that's what I'm trying to collect the whole Priest run. The Priest and Hudlin run, I'm trying to fill holes. I'm trying to get those complete runs. I may not be successful. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because some of those books are just, they're quote unquote affordable, but it's just being able to find them.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. We'll see. That first appearance of Shuri, it's number 2, I'm sorry, isn't it? That book is hard to find. That book is hard to find.
Well, it's hard to find at an affordable price, certainly.
So, but yeah. But since we're talking about books in general, let's talk about Nubia. Issue 2.
Issue 2 of Nubia.
Yes. Issue 2 of Nubia. And I got one word for it.
Here we go.
Oh, just one word. It's a good word. Better.
Better's good.
Better than issue 1. And I reserve the rest of my comments about that book. I'm putting it out to you have a meeting with your bosses, and they give you a compliment, and you're going in, but the reach around is going to come. You guys work hard, you're dedicated. We say thank you, but no, there's no but. I do believe that this definitely was a better issue, but I do have questions. And my main question, this is just a comic book question in general.
Okay.
Why is it that Black characters, for whatever reason, well, I may not know the reason, but maybe it's not a hypothetical, maybe it's a rhetorical question. But why is it that they are not comfortable in the mantles they've been given? We saw that with Sam Wilson in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier story. We saw that in the Mr. Miracle run. Now we got Nubia. She at the temple praying. We couldn't. I'm like, we can't get no black guys. No.
The question you're asking is a question of self-worth, because the question that you mentioned, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, really boils down to, am I good enough? Am I worthy?
Mm-hmm.
That Mr. Miracle series, shout out to Brandon Easton.
Sure.
That was the whole theory. That was the whole premise of the book, was asking those two questions. Am I good enough? Am I worthy? and that's a very interesting, insightful look at it, because a lot of these Black characters are always asking that questions of themselves, a degree of self-doubt. Nubia in issue 2 is questioning her decision to become Queen of the Themyscira rather than the protector of the doorway, which is, still a very important post, one that's certainly revered and honored as champion of Themyscira.
Right.
But she shies away. It's kind of interesting. You see the parallels between her and Black Panther, T'Challa, because both of them, royalty in positions of power, and at the end of the day, what they dream about, what they really are interested in, is going out and being a hero, being a champion, fighting the good fight, fighting evil. That excites them more than the drudgery of being a monarch.
Mm-hmm.
And so they both have their self-doubt when it comes to being monarchs, because they're both questioning, am I really doing right by my people, when secretly what I'd really prefer to be doing right now is beating up a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So am I truly being, am I worthy? Am I good enough of this mantle of being the monarch of this country, when all I can think about is beating up bad guys? So there was that book. And let's see what else we got. You mentioned Black Panther and Storm, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this Legends book, the question that both of them are trying to answer is, am I worthy or am I good enough? Right? Because in this story, T'Challa's on walkabout, trying to prove to himself, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Storm, at this point in her life, has left being the streets of Cairo, where she was a thief, and has just sort of come into her powers, and she's trying to determine, what path do I take from here?
Right.
She's trying to define herself. Here we go. Is another Black book that came out recently, Black Manta. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Black Manta's trying to redefine himself. He's trying to determine, who am I? And moreover, this is a really, by the way, DC universe shattering issue, because it reveals, well, I'm not going to give it away, but it opens up an area of the DC universe that has previously not been explored before. So that is a pretty cool thing. But Black Manta at this point is trying to determine, who am I? Struggling. Am I a villain? Am I an anti-hero? You're really sort of getting more depths and seeing the layers behind who he is as a person. And I find it fascinating. A lot of people are complaining about, well, the artwork isn't, I don't really have that much problem with the artwork, but not as much as everyone else. I think
I'm a story guy. Art is fine or whatever, and it's good to see it when it's good.
This writing is excellent. Chuck Brown's killing this book.
Yeah, the writing on books for me is the priority. And talking about, am I worthy? It's one of those things that, when you think about us as a people, our ability to go into spaces that are traditionally not ours,
right?
Whether that be corporate America, whether that be even in comic book spaces. I wrote a blog for our website, blackcomiclords.net. But the title of the blog was "The Black Guy Walks into a Comic Shop," and I talk about the idea of a Black guy walking into a comic shop. What's he faced with? What is he doing while he's there? And so we're used to being in places that are not traditionally ours. That's the problem of us being in this country. because our purpose originally was property. We were property. We were slaves. So now we're this free people whose destiny is still being unfolded. The thing that we're doing now, because there's nothing else to do, is try to fit in. So we've spent our the little time. If you think about it, we spent the little quote unquote time of freedom just trying to fit in. And so one of my favorite shows is The Wire. And there's a character on there called Stringer Bell. Stringer Bell is a brother from the streets, but he's not the muscle. He's the brains of the operation. And so his whole thing is, yeah, we're getting this money in the streets, but I'm ready to leave the streets. I'm trying to transition and take this money that we got, make it clean, make it work for us. And so he's faced with a situation where he gets into bed with a politician. It doesn't work out favorably for him. So he wants to hit the politician. And so Avon Barksdale, who is the real guy behind the whole operation, tells him, he says, you know, when I look at you, I see a man without a country. You know, not hard enough for this, talking about the street game, and maybe not smart enough for them out there. And I think that's a dynamic that a lot of us play, or a sandbox a lot of us play in. Because if you know, I think it was Dubois that said that, you know, we live in two Americas, and how we are really two people. That the person that you and I are in front of white folks or around white folks, we're not the same people that we are when we're home.
So for me, that sounds like what you're alluding to is that every Black person understands the duality of being a superhero.
Yes.
Because we live this dual existence every day, right? Yeah. We have to code switch.
Yes.
Right? We always are able to speak more than one language. We're always able to carry ourselves. We have to carry ourselves in a different manner. We have to teach our Black boys, you know, here are the things that you can and cannot do when you're around the police.
Yep. Protocols. And
we live a dual existence all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I just think when we get these stories, they help us to understand, one, that not only that we're worthy, but two, we have to challenge ourselves, and to understand more than anything that there is always going to be a challenge. I think that's the other part that separates the superhero from the quote unquote regular hero. Because the regular hero, he kind of gets paid and he kind of like shows up because that's his job. But the superhero is faced with the reality that, you know, he's a being, or she's a being that has powers or skills that's exceptional, and that can't not kind of like turn it off. You have to always be on.
Right.
So when you look at Nubia, for example, when she was praying and asking for guidance, and the I guess the gods, they kind of answered her, and she really couldn't address them because she's not familiar with royalty, or what royals are supposed to do, or how they address. Whereas a character like T'Challa, on the other hand, doesn't have that issue. If you know that about T'Challa, he knows who he is, and he rarely second guesses himself. because he knows, because he's been trained. Like in the movie, I love the Black Panther movie for so many reasons. So many reasons. And there's a scene where, of course, when he goes to the ancestral plane,
The Jala.
yeah, and he's talking with his father, and he tells his father, you know, I'm not ready to be without you. He was like, a man who has not trained his son. How did he put it?
A father who has not prepared his children for his own death has failed as a father.
Has failed as a father. And he had been prepared. He was already prepared. He was just tripping because he was missing his father. Because grief will do that to you as well. Grief will put you in a place where you won't remember, or you won't fully embrace who you are. Like when he was fighting M'Baku at the Warrior Falls, and his mother had to scream and yell at him, show him who you are. Like, you know who you are. And for Black people, that's the one thing that we have to always recognize, who we are. It's one thing, Paul, to know that we are the architects of civilization. It's another thing to walk like that.
Right.
And that's where we have failed as a people. We have failed to walk like that. What good is it for you to call me king, or for me to call a sister queen, if we fail to walk like that? If we're not presenting ourselves as royalty. You can say you descended from royalty. That automatically makes you royalty, but it's another thing entirely to walk as royalty. To be above anything petty, to be above anything that is, to know that there are things beneath you. But we're so conditioned by this world, its entertainment, that we feed our lower selves, and we never ascend. We read about like characters like Green Lantern who ascended, who who's on.
Boy, how'd you know that? That's what I was about to talk about. Still in my. I already have the book pulled out because I wanted to talk about that.
We can transition. Talk about that character. Talk about that book.
Segue. I mean, and just, dude, that's what this book's about, man. That's what this book is about. I love this cover. Because you have these differing versions of John Stewart.
Yeah.
And at the bottom it says, who is John Stewart, right?
Huh.
Who is John Stewart? And you see all these different versions of him. Sorry for glare.
No problem.
But you see all these different versions of this man, right?
Right.
John Stewart becomes something else. To quote the Green Arrow television show, he becomes something else.
That's what's
He's a Green Lantern who does not have a ring. What is that?
Traditionally not a Green Lantern.
He's something more, right?
Something more. Yeah.
He's something more.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what's going through Jeffrey Thorne's mind, but this is becoming interesting. Because on the flip side, the story B in this Green Lantern series is her story. Which, by the way, this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. I saw this cover. I had to get it. Teen Lantern's going through the same thing.
Right.
She's not a Green Lantern. She's something else.
Yeah, man. You know what's funny though? We're getting a lot of good stories, a lot of good content to talk about his fourth character. And the whole thought about comics in general is that comics are down. It's almost like people don't like comic books, but we're just not getting, I would say, a some real good stories, for some traditionally Black characters. These are not new characters.
Nope.
All these characters have been around a while.
Yeah.
Except maybe Teen Lantern. Other than that, Jon Stewart's been around a long time. Black Panther's been around since the 60s. I mean, we're getting some good traditional stuff. Now, do we want new characters? I don't know if Marvel or DC is interested in introducing new characters. Let me ask you, did you read The Gardener, the one shot?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. And the thought is that they're probably not going to do nothing with that character. I hope they do something with it. I mean, like, I know she's a villain, you know, and she's connected to Poison Ivy, but I hope they do something with her, you know. Yeah. So, you know.
Both the covers. I got both the covers.
So what's up?
Oh, I misspoke. I was talking about the Black Manta. Black Manta 3 introduced us to this whole earth-shattering thing.
Mm-hmm.
And really it's more the Aquaman 3.
Yeah.
That's the one, yeah. Well, the Black Manta has some of that too. But.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're getting ready to roll out some kind of crossover Aquaman.
Yeah, Aquaman. And not just a crossover, it's gonna be a new series.
Really?
Yeah. But Aquaman and Aqua, I guess it's Aqualad. Now he's Aquaman too. Jackson Hyde and Arthur Curry.
So they're gonna both be in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hoping it ties into this story that they're talking about in both Black Manta and the Aquaman Becoming storylines.
Okay.
Because that would be interesting.
Now that's something I have not read. I have not read the Aquaman books. Are they worth picking up?
The Aquaman Becoming?
Yeah.
I would say yes. I would say that if you're enjoying Black Manta, you should probably get the Aquaman Becoming as well, because they're tied together with this storyline that they're doing.
Okay.
They're father and son, so this storyline ties to both of them. That's all I want to say. I don't want to give away what's going on.
I forgot about that they were father and son.
They are. So that's all I will say on that. But they're tied together, and something that ties them together is becoming a major plot point.
Yeah, that's crazy. You know, and I have a few Aquaman books. And Aquaman has always been the redhead stepchild or the blonde stepchild, however you want to put it. But he has not been a character that a lot of people talk about, though he has an 80-year history. He's been around, you know, as long as Superman and Batman.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say the last Aquaman story I read, it was a very, very sad story.
Yeah.
And it was like he was dreaming about this life that he had, or he was denied, for his son and with Mira, and it was just a very depressing story. It was very, very, it was a one shot. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to continue reading stuff like this here, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Herschel had posted this one book. Let me share this. This one right here. This is Aquaman number 57 from this is July of 1977 is when this book came out. It's got Black Manta in it. I'm
looking at the little thing on the bottom, so you could be in the Superman movie, because that came out in 78. Wow. So what's the significance about that book?
For me personally, well, Herschel posted it because there's a henchman in there who basically talks about, look, I signed up because I'm down with a cause for the people,
Right.
you know, black liberation, but you out here try to go all killmonger and kill people left and right, and I'm not down with that.
Okay.
But this, I was going to say, the personal significance of this book for me, this is like when I looked at the first comic books that I ever had,
Mm-hmm.
this is like one of the top three first comics I ever owned.
Oh, okay.
My dad got this for me when I was 5.
Okay. You still got it?
Yeah, I still have it. I mean, it's not in great condition, and I probably wrote my name on it because I was 5.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this is one of the first comics I ever owned. Um, that just has a lot of significance for me personally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely, man. I mean, there are books that I have collected that um that I remember from my childhood where I didn't necessarily remember the story, but I remember the covers.
Right.
So I'm discovering a lot of those like right now, books that I saw as a child and picked up. There was a Defenders 100 not too long ago I picked up, and I remember reading that. It was a real thick book, and I here's the thing: I'm not a Defenders guy, but Defenders was one of the first books that I read, and so um, it's just one of those things where those books hold uh they hold special or sentimental value for whatever reason, but I enjoyed that book for sure.
You told me to get these books, so I got these. This storyline with Aquaman, because we were just talking about the link between Black Manta and Aqualad Jackson Hyde,
Right.
and this was kind of an interesting storyline with the two of them, and they talk about their grandfather,
Yep.
Jackson Hyde. This is a dope cover.
Yeah, it is.
This is hands down the best Black Manta cover I've ever seen.
I don't know, man. Did you see the one I put up the other day?
What are you talking about?
The Aquaman. Man, what was it?
Oh, this is the storyline you're telling me about, the family business storyline.
62. Yeah, 62 and 63.
62 and 63.
Hold on. Let me see if I can. It's man, let me find. I gotta find. Just hold on. But yeah, I put up a post about a Black Manta. It actually is an Aquaman cover, but let's see. I'm gonna find it real quick. I can tell you which one it is. You can pull it up. But I thought that was the fire cover. Let me see. Ooh, let me know what Richard. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Aquaman 23.1.
Oh, I think I have that. Yeah.
Where he just sliced up Aquaman. Yeah, it is.
That was that holographic cover, the
Yeah,
lenticular.
yeah. I think the holograph was 23. Excuse me. And there's a regular cover just like that. But they definitely had the holographic covers.
The one I have this book. That's why I pulled it up from my CLZ.
Yeah.
I have this one in the holographic form.
Yeah.
Dope cover. Definitely a dope cover. See, I'm not an Aquaman fan either, but I am a Black Manta fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Been around a long time. Just like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? That first appearance, his first appearances. Oh, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I'll be able to ever afford that book.
Nope, not me. But that's why. Look, and here's the thing for anyone who's watching this. Sometimes when you can't get the first appearance, you get the second appearance, or
Yes.
you get the origin issue. Because oftentimes, the first appearance is also not the same as the origin.
Nope.
For Aquaman, if you can't, for Black Manta, if you can't get his first appearance, then this is what you do. Get this.
Yep. 452.
Adventure comic starring Aquaman number 452. I think I put this even above the first appearance of Black Manta because this is where you realize Black Manta was actually black. And
Yep.
not only that, you realize Black Manta's, motivation was black liberation. I just thought that was dope.
Yeah.
That's why I find him fascinating. You don't
Yeah.
really have too many superheroes that are like that. I mean, not superheroes. I call them superhero villains, black characters talking about their black liberation characters. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Nope. So we talked enough about that. Let's talk about some independent stuff. Right?
Before, did you get this? Just as want to make sure.
Yeah. That's in the pull list.
Okay, good. There's
Yeah.
2 covers. There's this one,
I know.
and there's this one.
Right. I'm fully aware. I just laughed at Herschel. You talk about, nobody talks about this. I'm like, bro, that's all I've been screaming. Philadelphia at
Strange
Strange
Academy.
Academy.
Now here's something I was just talking about with a fellow comic book fan today. So we have this character in Strange Academy, Zoe Laveau, right?
Right. From New Orleans.
She is from New Orleans. She is the descendant of Marie Laveau, who was known as the Voodoo Queen.
Yep. Have a couple of her books, independent books, but yes.
She is a real person.
Yes.
A real historical figure. There's a panel in this story, in this book, in which the kids from the Strange Academy go and visit the cemetery that she's in, that's in New Orleans. I just went to New Orleans for the first time in 2019 in my life, first time ever. And, me and a couple friends, we went on this tour bus and we got off at the cemetery of Marie Laveau, where she's there. And the picture that's in this book of them going up to the cemetery gate, I've been to that gate. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I know exactly where that is. I was just there 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it sort of beggars this question. If Marie Laveau's a real person and her descendants are still alive because her store in what do you call it? What do you call that downtown area? Bourbon Street?
Yeah, Bourbon Street.
Her store down there by Bourbon Street is still there, her original store, that's owned by her family still. How is it they're able to use her likeness in the comics without cutting that family a check?
They probably didn't. They probably had to get permission.
Exactly.
So,
And she's been around for a long time because Marie Laveau was in Doctor Strange comics. She was in Blade. She's been in Tomb of Dracula. She's been in a lot of the Marvel horror books. So Stan Lee must have worked something out with that family a long time ago where he's able to use Marie Laveau's likeness.
Well, you know what's funny? Well, not funny, but what's interesting is that, when you look at, say, Spider-Man, for example, Spider-Man is a character that works only in New York. I can't see Spider-Man in LA.
Right.
I can't see Spider-Man in Houston. I can only see Spider-Man in the Big Apple.
And they've obviously had him in other locations, but it's never quite the same.
Right, exactly. Skyscrapers, it is what it is. So that's a part of the mythos, if you will, of Spider-Man. I think in the same vein, when you have a historical character, because that's the thing about historical figures that show up in comics. Their story is more, it's more fiction than reality, but the legend is so strong. I mean, they did that. They did what is it? American Horror Story, and Angela Bassett, she played Marie Laveau, I want to say.
Did she?
I believe so. I believe that was who she was playing. And most powerful voodoo priestess ever, supposedly. So the thing is, when you see a character like that, you know what I'm saying, it legitimizes what they're trying to do because they're using real live people, if that makes sense. Speaking of magic or whatever, but I wanted to bring up this book.
Magic Order. Yes, sir.
Which has a couple of Black characters in it. And it's pretty interesting. First, did you read the first one? The first Magic Order?
Not yet.
Okay. I won't say you need to read it to understand this book per se. But it does help to know the story. Because it's about basically a house or houses, if you will, of magicians and magical beings and that sort of thing. So so on the independent side, did you get a chance to read I would say, well, Rodney Barnes put up the second issue of Elysian Gardens
on Substack, yeah.
On Substack, he just put that up. The second issue.
First issue is free, I believe. Right.
I think the second issue may be free. Because he put it up that it was available. But I don't necessarily know you have to subscribe to it. But as far as other independent stuff, that Philadelphia number 19 that's getting ready to come out with George Washington on the cover.
Yep.
New story arc with the father of the country. So that should be pretty interesting, needless to say. And we're getting werewolves. That's the other part.
I'm curious to see if George Washington was a vampire.
We'll see. Well, he was a slave owner, so yeah, he was a vampire. He sucked the blood out of some black people.
With his wooden teeth?
Yeah, exactly. He never told a lie. That's what they say anyway.
The sick thing is that they talk about his wooden teeth to overshadow the fact that he took teeth out of his slaves and used.
Yes.
Wow. That's just the things we tell our children to not give them nightmares at night.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. One of the things that I have an idea for a story, and when I'm able to really nail it down, I'm gonna probably share it with someone like that. I want to be able to actually tell the story. But suffice to say that when you really do the study of American history, chattel slavery, it reads like a horror story. And the whole idea that they want to eliminate that education from the American child. They don't want no one to know. it's bad enough that they don't want to know, but they don't want no one to know. As if that's going to change anything. You can't change a 400-year bloody history. You don't have to go to a textbook to read about slavery or lynchings, and then you just go to Alabama, go to the museum or the place that they've set up to, you know, kind of represent the 4,000 people or so that were lynched. You can go through Memphis, go see some of the slave quarters, parts of the Underground Railroad, because they think that, you know, them not teaching critical race theory in schools is going to make or spare white kids any grief.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a misnomer to even say teach kids critical race theory, because that's not what the kids are learning. Critical race theory is something that's taught in colleges and law schools. I've studied critical race theory as part of my education for my degrees. What the kids are learning is not that. What the kids are learning is history.
Yeah.
Accurate history. That's not critical race theory. And it's being labeled as something that is not.
Yeah.
To try and say, well, kids don't need to be learning college courses. But that's not what it is. They're teaching kids history, real history. And what's also interesting is you said, well, look, you know, people want to learn this stuff. You can simply go to these places. But we live in the information age.
Yep.
And people, you know, may not want to spend the time to go someplace. They want they want information now. If you can't simply pull it up on this, people aren't interested. And whoever controls what's on this controls the world. I know that sounds cliche, but it's not. It's not. I mean, it's facts. Whoever controls this, the information that comes on this, they control your reality. I mean, it's like when you talk about the philosophies of the movie The Matrix, that's what we're talking about. Whoever controls the information controls your reality. And what they're trying to do is change the game up on the message of what that reality is, of what that history is. If you can rewrite history, what do they say? History is a story told by the victors.
Yep.
So they're viewing themselves as the victors, and they're trying to rewrite history. These people that are opponents to teaching accurate history to children in schools. And that's a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous thing, because the long-term ramifications of that on our youth and on the next generation are significant.
And I think also it causes us as a people to be more vigilant in regards to our stories, keeping them alive. We are in an information age, but the sages, griots that are among us, are still tasked with the mantle, or the task with the whole idea of sharing generation to generation. Because here's the truth about, let's say they are completely able to eliminate slavery from the textbook. You have a people who, for the most part, according to the racial wealth gap, needs 250 years to catch up. Why is that? Well, maybe they're not genetically, maybe they're not as smart. Maybe you're just better. I'm saying this hypothetically. Kid doesn't know nothing about slavery or anything like that, right? I said, well, we need to do something about it. These people are a problem. Well, what should we do? Well, we could get rid of them. We could make them slaves. We could, and the thing is, it's still debatable whether or not we're quote unquote free. And what I mean by that is that we're still very much hooked up to the matrix. We're still very much connected to this thing with no real 100% idea that, you know what? Liberation is not just an idea, it's something that's real. But very few people want it because most people rather be comfortable. See, I can be comfortable in my nice little house with my little books, my little red, black, and green flag, and nobody's bothering me. And as long as they come knocking on my door, I'm good. But I got to get up every morning. I got to go punch that clock. I got to go put this time in so I can pay these people. Pay for the privilege of living in this house. You know, pay for the privilege of breathing this good air, this good bad air that might give me cancer or give me lupus or something like that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, go to a fast food restaurant, eat food that might give me cancer, you know, high blood pressure, you know, those kind of things. This is a daily reality for Black people. Now, vast majority of Black people are poor. You don't have a house like me and you, Paul. They live in shacks. They live in abject poverty. And so it's like, how did they get there? How did that happen? No one's going to ask that question. And you know what they say? Ignorance is bliss.
Right.
So you're literally trying to create a bliss, you know, out of this reality that we live in, or this virtual reality that we have. You know,
who's bliss though? Certainly not ours.
Oh, of course not. I mean, it's called a smartphone, and we do the dumbest things with it.
You know, and circling it back to comics, you know, shout out to Herschel, our partner. Herschel was in one of these spaces recently, and this guy had made this post about Black Panther is the first Black superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And I corrected him and said, well, he's the first Black mainstream superhero. But, you know, props on that because he's my favorite guy. And he said, well, no, you're wrong. It's like, well, no, sir, I disagree. I mean, we've got, there are some other Black superheroes that came out before him. And Herschel jumped into the conversation, the chat, the comments, and pointed out, you know, characters like Lothar and what's the other one he mentioned? He rattled off, Waku. I mentioned Lion Man. I mean, these are other Black superheroes that existed before Black Panther. I mean, Lion Man and Waku are pretty much prototypes for Black Panther. I mean, the storylines are just eerily similar.
Yep.
And you know, this guy kept debating it and saying, you know, I believe Lothar is a sidekick, so he doesn't fit the definition of a superhero. And you know, and this guy making these comments, he was Black, and it's like the amount of self-hatred that you must have. It's like it's like, well, you know, he was only viewed as a sidekick, and they dumbed him down and made him speak in a broken English, and like, all that's true. All that's true. But context is king.
Absolutely.
we're talking about a time period, Jim Crow. We're talking 1930s, 1940s.
Yep.
There is no civil rights movement even going on at this point yet.
No, not at all.
Black people aren't even supposed to be in comic books, let alone have a heroic role in comics. So yes, he's going to be a sidekick to a white character. So yes, he's going to be subservient to the white character, but he's there. He's heroic, and he's superpowered.
Yep.
You can't take these things out of context and go, well, that's not strong enough for me. I'm like, okay. But for at the time, it was revolutionary. Someone's always got to be first. And you can't take away from those early characters, the pioneers.
You need
that's doing them a disservice.
Yeah, you need those earlier servants to show you how you got where you got.
Correct. There has to be a starting point for you to make the progressions.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Hattie McDaniels won an Oscar for Gone with the Wind, but if you didn't have Hattie McDaniels, you wouldn't have a Monique.
Right.
You wouldn't have a Whoopi Goldberg. And it confuses me at times when I look at our people, because we have this thing where we like to, we're ashamed of our humble beginnings and not realizing that in fact is what made you strong. One of my favorite movies, I can't say it's one of my favorite movies, but a movie that kind of touched me in a crazy way was The Butler. And I'm not no Lee Daniels fan by no stretch of the imagination, but I really enjoyed The Butler in the sense that he was a guy based on a real guy. He was a guy who served all these presidents. He has a son who's radical, joined the Black Panther Party, whole 9 yards. And this is how he fed his family. And, for his son to disparage him, it's like the food that caused you to grow came out of the work he did. And he hurt. And the thing is like, why would you, find honor in that? It's kind of shameful, don't you think? It's like, no. All work is honorable. And, again, would he probably like the better job? Absolutely. But what he did was he offered the best service he could.
And what is more noble than to sacrifice your own self and your own dignity for the benefit of your own family?
Exactly.
It's nothing more noble than that.
Yeah. It's not like a dope black man to me. You know what I'm saying? We got people that won't sacrifice themselves, won't sacrifice nothing for their kids that look like them. Crazy. And so, we have this thing, especially with comics, you know what I'm saying? We're ashamed of some of these images. And I'm like, yeah, some of this it's drawn to be shameful. But you gotta look at it because it's what they thought. And you look at that image, and now you look at the images that you have. Show and compare whatever, that this is what they thought you were. This is who you really are. This is who you've always been. You never really was that. It's an indictment on it. And while, you can collect Golden Age books if you want, if you don't want it in your house, I get it. I really do. But we have no right to put it down, because it's part of our history. It's like, you can't, I don't care how pro-black you are or whatever, at the end of the day, our feats, This country, our blood is in the soil of this country, period. Whether it's talking Revolutionary War, or you're talking about under a whip, So it's like we ought to relocate. We ought to go back to Africa, things of that nature. Why I got to go back to Africa? I take Africa with me, no matter where I go. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that I think bothers people. The fact that no matter what we do, where we go, the drum followed us. When we were in the slave ships, it wasn't just bodies in the slave ships. It was the drum. The drum, the music, everything that came out of the American existence, jazz, country music, rock and roll, all that was by Black people. Britain, not, let's be clear, oppressed people. Okay? We did all of that. Creativity. I mean, just imagine if we quote unquote were free. That's why Wakanda is powerful in the concept of it. For us, is because it represents what we should have been versus what we are.
That's why it resonates with so many African Americans.
Yeah.
When it's the ultimate fantasy of what if, right? There's no greater what if story Marvel's ever done than the concept of Wakanda.
Exactly. And funny thing is, the reason why Black Panther as a character is who he is because, T'Challa represents the complete wholeness of a human being. Because all of us, we have European names, we have European education, we eat European food, we consume European air, or should I say stolen air. T'Challa is 100% authentic who he is. And even if he spends time in America fighting with the Avengers or whatever, he's never had to compromise anything about who he is because he's always known who he was. For us, that's why we can put on the dashikis, we can rock the kente cloth. It's not foreign to us. Even the Africans, they look at us. They can look at us and be disgusted, or they can look at us because they recognize, one, they recognize who we are. Two, they recognize their sin. That's the other part of this whole equation that it still needs to be answered. We know that white people did what they did, but we also know that we were sold by some of our own people into these places. That's why the story of Joseph is in the Bible resonates with Black people, because it's exactly what happened. They sold us into slavery. But what happened to Joseph when he was in Egypt? He flourished. And these people have tried to kill us with crack, AIDS, lynching, redlining, and we still here. We still here. And what bothers me is the fact that when you and I talk about the concept of race in comics, in stories or whatever, why do some people feel the need to run from that when that's really who we are? That's what showed us our strength. Slavery did not show how weak we were. Slavery showed us how strong we were because we survived it. We were not supposed to be here, bro.
Yeah. When you think about it in comics as well, the question comes up oftentimes in these spaces about, I don't like that particular comic book that has that black character in it because their blackness isn't showing through in the story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's because I think that is an issue for many people because they recognize that we live these dual lives. And as a superhero who has to live a dual life, that should be exemplified in the story as well. Because if you have to live a dual life as a superhero, you damn sure as a black superhero has to live a quadruple life, right?
Right, right. You know
Because
what? And here's the thing about that. I think when you have stories that don't quote unquote bring up race or whatever, I think race is already implied. I think that who we are, our presence. I mean, do you understand, Paul, that people become nauseated in your presence?
I
Have you
do
ever had
too.
have you ever had somebody white just stare at you for no apparent reason? I'm serious. We've all
Oh,
had,
I know you are, and I've lived that.
you know, it just stare at you because it's like, you know, you're not really supposed to be here. I mean, Paul, they wrote books, had scientists that said that you didn't have the brain, the capacity to pass the bar, let alone practice law. They wrote books, books like Bell Curve that said in retrospect that a large majority of black people in America don't have the brain capacity to rule. It just boggles my mind. And so while I get that, you know what I'm saying, I look at certain books or certain stories like August Wilson's Fences. It doesn't talk about the white man. It's just a black story about a black family, about a black man.
Hmm.
You know, we live these amazing lives, you know, because here's the thing about that. We live lives that are very, very animated. We live lives that are very, very humbling. We live lives that are very, very deep and spiritual. And I'm talking about when we're at home. Like you talk about that code, we live these lives. I give you an example, man. My wife, you know, the one word that offends my wife more than anything, a word that she detests that I call her sometimes. I be playing with her, but she hates the word Negro. And it's not because it's not a word of endearment or whatever, but she's proud she's a black woman. So if I use that word in jest with her, she's offended by it. And you know, she's a army brat. Father was a gospel preacher for 40 years. She loves the earth, plays in the dirt. That's what she do for fun.
Hmm.
And she's an old soul doing something that generations of her family do. Grandfather, she used to go spend time with her grandfather in Georgia on a farm. Black life. You're Jamaican.
Hmm.
So you have a unique perspective as a Jamaican and as a black man. And no one that's outside or that's not Jamaican that grew up in Brooklyn where you are can speak to your life. But I'm willing to bet, I didn't have to spend a day in your house, but I'm willing to bet that there was nothing evil or it was beautiful, it was rich, it was funny, it was life, it was, you felt alive. That's the story of most black people, even in quote unquote poverty, impoverished situations. You hear
Yeah.
some black people talk about their lives, and certain things will come up, and they'll say things like, "Well, I didn't know we were poor. You're just living." I mean, we literally took the lemons, and made lemonade.
That part, that statement is all of black people's existence from the diaspora, was taking the lemons that we have been given,
Yeah.
and making lemonade. We'll take pots and pans and invent jazz music, and we'll take the scraps of food that they give us and invent an entire culinary, delight. We'll, take um, if you don't know how to use musical instruments, we'll take samples of various musics and with a sample machine and create an entire musical art form.
Yeah.
We're this world's greatest creators and innovators. What we
Uh,
don't create, what we don't create, we innovate.
I read somewhere that he's talking about hip hop, and says hip hop did not invent anything, but it reinvented everything.
Sure.
And it just speaks to us. And so we think about comics or whatever, the stories that we could come up with. I don't think that for all of the stuff that we've gotten, Paul, it's for a story.
Right.
I still feel like we scratched the surface. We've only scratched the surface.
We have, and that's a very, very, very good point. And we always talk about these spaces about the legacy characters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And this run by Brandon Easton is significant on that point. It is an exclamation point on that. And I really don't think the brother gets enough credit for the writing on that Mr. Miracle Source of Freedom, because as innovators, as people that take the scraps of our past and make something better, so much so that those people that gave us the scraps look at what we innovated with those scraps and they try to emulate it. And then they eventually try to take it over. Jazz music, right?
Yep.
And so what Brandon Easton did in that run, he takes a legacy character and he completely turns it on its head, redos his origins, and elevates it and makes it a better character than the original. You can't tell me Scott Free
Could have did that.
is comparable to Shiloh Norman after Source of Freedom. Shiloh Norman is clearly a superior character at this point, in power levels, in just being an interesting character, etc.
If anything, he probably helped when they do bring him back. He probably would have helped him. To be honest, it's one of those things, man, where I think when it comes to the stories that we tell, one reason why I say we've only scratched the surface is that the capacity of Black life, or the totality of Black life, is exhausting, because you have, like, your boy Abazi, shout out to Blur Core, was asking about other Western books other than Lobo, and we talked about, I brought up Rodney Barnes and Sheriff Gatlin,
right?
I think Willie may have turned him on to some other stuff too, but of course, Bad Breeze came up by Kevin Greavy.
Gunhawks, Reno Jones.
Yeah.
I brought up Django.
I'm still trying to complete that run in the Django and Zorro run too.
Yeah, it's a great run.
So we have all of these different stories, which by the way, did you see the Harder They Fall?
Too, of course.
Yeah. Dope story for sure. But there are thousands of stories like that. All of them were based on different characters or whatever. They just kind of put them all together. I mean, you literally can go and do a research on one of those characters, whether it's Stagecoach Mary, all these different characters with a Cherokee Bill. You could literally, you know what I'm saying? That history of just the old West is rich with Black cowboys. That's just one capacity of Blackness in this country.
It's funny. You just used a term that's kind of interesting. You said Black cowboy. And when we study this history, we realize there's no such thing as a Black cowboy because the cowboys were originally Black.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything, it should be white cowboy.
Yeah, pretty much.
As the adjective, right?
If we're going to be.
It makes such sense because they call them cowboys because they refer to Black men as boys.
Yes, sir. You won't get that. You won't get that in your classroom.
You won't get that in the classroom. They talk about the old West. Oh yeah, the West had lots of cowboys. Yeah, they were us.
Yep. And you know, that's the other part too, you know what I'm saying? That's why one of the reasons why I think I enjoyed One Good Asian was, you know, they touched on the history of the Chinese in this country. And, you know, I just thought it was interesting that I could not find nobody, no melanated challenged people to talk about it. And it's like, you want to keep comics a certain way, but you don't want to deal with the truth of people's lives, because these were funny pages historically for them. We lived in a time, and maybe one day somebody will write a story about it, but Black people were not allowed to laugh in public. We had to laugh in a barrel. That's why the term barrel of laughs comes from.
Barrel of laughs, yeah.
And you know, this is the truth of the oppression. Half the story has only been told, only half. One of the reasons why I respect Quentin Tarantino is when he did the Django story, and he showed those halos or those chains that they were wearing. You had never seen that before in cinema.
Right.
And no one could refute what he was saying in that. He gave a lot of history, even though it was a spaghetti Western or whatever. It was completely fiction. He gave a lot of historical significance in that story.
Showed how inhumane people were treated.
Yeah.
Stuff they don't want to think about or acknowledge.
Yep.
The savagery of the past.
Yeah. And while they were creating these books as propaganda tools for the war, to support the wars that they were fighting, you know, you conveniently forgot about the other stuff that was happening. You know, when Gabriel and what is it, the Sergeant Fury and Sergeant Rock and the Howling
Howling Commandos.
Yeah, you'll tell a little story then, but you won't tell the complete story. We'll talk about Tuskegee Airmen. You won't talk about, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You give one or two issues or whatever, you'll acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying? I think that, and I think Marvel and DC for their acknowledgement. I just want them to do more because it's so much more. You know, Black creatives can only do so much, but it takes a machine to really tell the stories. And what I mean by machine, it takes you could take 10 Black creators and tell 10 different stories about 10 different aspects of life in America. You get 10 different stories, easy, because that's how diverse we are as a people. You know, you don't want to tell a slavery story. You can tell a story about the Old West. You can tell a story about Reconstruction. Tell a story about Vietnam. You know, shout out to Spike Lee when he did The Five Bloods. Have you seen it yet? Still on you about it. Need to go watch it.
You know, I haven't seen it yet.
You need to watch it, man. Go watch The Five Bloods, bro.
You know, I haven't watched it yet. Don't put me on blast.
I know, I know. Speaking of which, let's switch gears and let's talk about T'Challa. Okay. And what I mean by this is we're talking about Black Panther 2. So we know we got the news that they are not recasting T'Challa and that, you know, they're not going to assume, or well, the word I think we just got was that they're going to start back filming in January. Because apparently Letitia Wright really hurt herself, and so she won't be back.
From what I understand, it was a shoulder injury and a concussion.
Wow. They got her doing some real fighting. I thought she got no stand in.
They probably had her doing some wire work and she fell, probably.
Yeah. You know, and again, you know, we'll see, you know, I'm saying so much of the movie, there's a lot riding on this Black Panther movie.
Its movie's been suspended indefinitely.
And I think that they understand why a lot is riding on this movie as well, which is why for them it's like, okay, you know what? Let's hold up. But, you know, the whole thing is, you know, Chadwick Boseman, when he passed, that hurted a lot of people, bro. And I was one of those people. And I remember saying that, you know what, they need to just make this a one shot. I was that lot to say no, don't recast. And it wasn't because I didn't think that the character wasn't important. I do believe that the character was important. But I just knew, for me personally, you know, we're going to get a Black Panther movie. We're going to get another T'Challa, but we will not get that guy again. And I think that's the thing that hurts more than anything, because Chadwick Boseman was a master thespian. I mean, he was a master. That guy there, man. I can watch his movies like Denzel. I can just sit for hours and just watch his movie, just watch his work. The stuff he did, like, have you ever seen Marshall? Now, you're a lawyer. I know you've got to see Marshall.
No, I have not seen Marshall.
Oh, bruh, what are you doing? So this thing with Chadwick has really got you in a pickle. I see.
You want to talk about your emotionalism over Chadwick's death? I was very emotional.
Yeah.
You understand? I mean, I've been fantasizing about having a Black Panther movie, seeing my favorite superhero on the big screen for decades.
Yes, sir.
And seeing him when he popped up on that screen in Captain America Civil War.
You had to pinch yourself.
Man, I saw that movie with another brother of mine, and who's also a big Black Panther fan. And you know, he was about your age.
Yeah.
And we were just these two long-time Black Panther fans. We went to see that movie together. Yeah. And when I remember so clearly when they showed Chadwick and he was from behind, right? Yeah. At the UN, right. And he turns around, all smooth. Me and a brother turned to each other, and we just geeked out. We're like, "Oh my God, Black Panther! That's it! He's on the screen. It's official. He's in the MCU."
Yeah, yeah.
And the way he carried himself, the way that I envisioned T'Challa to be on the screen, He
Right.
did it with such perfection in that movie. Um, Look, I get people are emotional about his death. I'm one of those people. When he died, I mean that hit me hard. So much so that I wasn't able to see any of his other movies at that point. I couldn't bring myself to watch
Right.
it was difficult. Um, but that being said, the importance of the character
Mhm.
just
I know we can't. We can't.
I
We
have to I
can't.
have to believe in my heart of hearts he'd be the first one to say this character's got to go on because he knew his diagnosis, right? And that's the
Yep.
part that gets us is that you talk about he's a master thespian, but I don't think that's what really strikes the chord in everyone. It's that he was a great human being.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
From by all accounts from his co-stars and the people that knew him and worked with him, he was just an incredible human being. And the fact that he kept his illness to himself, still showed up to sets every day,
Uh-huh.
struggling, working through pain. What we can only imagine was the amount of
Uh-huh.
pain that he was in,
Uh-huh.
and still able to do that work, and knowing that he was terminal, and still coming out to do that work.
Yep.
I mean, that what if stories he did,
Yep.
he knew at that point,
Yep.
you know, and he still chose to go out and still do the voiceovers in those what if stories,
Yep.
knowing his condition.
Right.
Um, that speaks to the man and how he recognized how important. They could have had someone else do it. There are some actors that didn't decide to come back for the what if series. Scarlett Johansson didn't come back for the what if series.
No.
Robert Downey Jr., who made all his money, he didn't come back for the what if series. He came back.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that he did that because he knew how important
It
the
was.
role was to people,
Mhm.
and they wouldn't accept anybody else. So he jumped in and did it.
Yeah.
He wanted it to go on, and I just think it'd be a dishonor to him to not let the character go on.
I think that here's the thing. I think that they will. I think they will recast him. I think the producer hit the right word when he said we're not going to recast him in the 616, which means we're
Right.
going to get.
I think the multiverse is what they're gonna do,
Yeah.
which
So
would be a logical thing to do.
yeah, which brings up actually different Black Panthers. We're going to get more. I think that also.
I think that book that you have that you picked up today may have a new Black Panther.
We'll see when I read it. I just know that for me, man, it's you know, Black Panther for me has always been a mystery in the sense that he represents what should have been, like you said, what if, the ultimate what if story as far as Wakanda goes. And so you see a guy born and bred in America, American Black man, who was able to go into this character and embody this character. Funny thing is that when they initially were going to do the movie, the thought was that they would speak with British accents.
Right.
He was the one that said, no, no, you're gonna be unapologetically African.
No, my colonizer brothers, that's not going to happen today.
Exactly. I mean, his heartbeat was all over that movie, which is why it's such a prized piece of art. To
Well
me,
said.
there are few movies that are just pieces of art. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are a lot of dope movies or whatever. I'm a movie guy. But when I think about just classic pieces of art, I think of The Wiz. Um, not too many other movies outside of that. But I also,
Because of the amount of detail they put into it.
I also think Black Panther in that same vein, because of the music, because of how it felt authentic. I remember seeing it in the theater and just being overwhelmed by the color. by the warrior falls, the robes, the dress, all of these things that for a kid, what I'm saying, very, very inspirational, very, very, because when I started seeing kids doing the Mbaku doing the Mbaku entry, man. Well, I mean, I was just tickled because that was the payoff. That was the payoff of that movie. To get little kids to see this larger than life character and
Right.
and decide that I can be like T'Challa. I can be
Right.
like a real king. I can be a superhero. He looks like me. He feels like it's not
For little
something
for little girls too, man. Me and you had daughters. I mean,
yeah,
the fact that little girls can go there and say, you know what, I can be a warrior.
yeah,
I can be a queen like Ramonda. I can be a warrior like Shuri, or I mean, a scientist like Shuri. I can be a warrior like Okoye.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And like I told you, I saw it twice before I took my wife. Because I told her, I said, man, I'm sorry, it's good. It's just that good. And so um it will always, be something that I hold dear. Because he, you know, I mean, to me, out of all the Marvel movies that had to pop, that one had to pop for it to really. I just don't, they took their time when they made that movie because I think they realized the impact. Um, I don't know if another actor, 2020 in hindsight, but I don't know if another actor could have pulled that off. And I think that that's the other thing too that stings about Chadwick's passing in that, whoever gets that role, that guy is going to have to really bring it because Chadwick put the bar way up here. And the other part is you're going to have those that are going to always say, you know what, you did a good job, but my T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman. So I think you're going to get some of that too.
yeah, but you have that with like the James Bond franchise too. People like, to this day, there's no other James Bond but Sean Connery. Everyone's got
Roger
their
Moore.
favorite.
I mean, and again, we'll see what they give us, man. I'm, Wakanda Forever is going to be. I think it's going to be a dope movie. I'm not sure what to expect. I'm going into it almost like Shang-Chi, in that I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. Because again, we don't know what story arc they're doing. We really don't know what angle they're going to be coming from. It could be more of a transitional type movie where they'll deal with a threat or whatever, but it'll lead into something further down the road. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens with it. But I don't know, man. I want, kind of like what Herschel was saying. I want other characters to get some shine. There isn't really. I mean, you got Luke Cage as far as Marvel goes. You got, Black Goliath, which is in the MCU. Well, the Bill Foster is not Black Goliath.
We have the potential for what the theme of this live is, which is Black Super Love,
Yeah.
by having Monica Rambeau hopefully introduce Blue Marvel.
Yeah.
How amazing would that be?
I mean, listen, no one be more stoked for Blue Marvel than maybe Rico.
I don't know, dude. Well, financially stoked, certainly. I don't have the financial motivation that Rico has, but
Rico might be able to send his grandkids to college if that dude shows up. I'm just saying. Shout out to my boy. You know, I'm looking forward to that, man. I mean, that was the first book that I read digitally that made me want to go out and buy the comic.
Right.
That's how profound I thought, Kevin Greavy's writing was on that book. And I just think it's a travesty that he's not writing another run of Blue Marvel. Shout out to Marvel. Y'all need to do right by that brother and bring him back in for another Blue Marvel story.
Well,
He's got stories. He shared some of it with him.
how is he not being used right now? It's
You know,
phenomenal to me.
I mean, but see, at the same time, though, what I love about Kevin Greavy is the fact that he didn't let the grass grow under his feet. He went and did Underworld. It's like, I can do something else. Do Underworld. I do my own story, Darkstorm. I mean, he did that. He did I, Frankenstein. I mean, he's writing Bash Reeves right now.
Now he's got that new book of Jinn.
Rise of the Jinn, I think that's what it's called.
Jinn, which is dope book.
Doing that too. So, when we talk about Philippus and Wonder Woman and Nubia stuff, he wrote the Odyssey of the Amazons.
Yeah. I got that. I'm still reading that.
A lot of people slept on that run.
A lot of people. I didn't even know about it until you guys told me about it.
So, he's done some work, you know what I'm saying, but he's yet to do, he's yet to go back to Marvel. And he may not ever want to go back to Marvel until
he's doing his own thing now.
Until they give him, he probably wants Blue Marvel again. I wouldn't be mad. I'm pretty sure he's got a call. They know the impact of that book. They know we waiting on this character to show up. That, and along with Dr. Voodoo or whatever, I think that people will be excited to see Jericho Drum, but if Adam Brashear shows up, he's gonna go bananas.
I will lose my mind.
It's gonna go bananas because you're talking about a real equivalent to Superman.
Well, that's the trick, though. It's not just presenting Adam Brashear; it's presenting an authentic Adam Brashear, not some depowered version that they do in the movies. Oftentimes, I'm talking. This dude is it. We're talking one of the most powerful superheroes in the Marvel universe.
Apex Predator for sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll see what they do, you know what I'm saying? But again, we don't know, because here's the thing about Marvel. We're getting ready to get next week, I think the Hawkeye story or show is coming on.
Uh-huh.
And so all of this is playing into what they're doing as the movies go. I thought Eternals was very entertaining. I enjoyed it. I think it's still a top 5 in the story, from the story perspective. I won't go and get into about the action and all that, or what I'm talking about is for a story itself. That story was phenomenal. I don't care what anybody say. That story was phenomenal. Those characters were very layered. I think they did a good job putting it out there. Now, I'm not a purist. Some of the guys were like, "Oh, not the same character." I get it. You didn't like they swapped a lot of genders and swapped some races. I get it.
No, they didn't perpetuate the racist versions of the when the characters were created back during Jim Crow. Okay, great. I can live with that. I can live with
it. So, but I really can't tell where they're going, because we get another season of Loki. We know Kang, which has the potential to be a big bad, is coming. How is it, man? We got another Spider-Man movie getting ready to come out too, on top of all this other stuff that's going on.
I need Miles to show up.
Yeah.
It's a multiverse story. Miles has got to show up, man. It's
They've
got to show
kept
up.
it. They've kept it a secret. They
I think when you have the actor Tom Holland talk about, you know what, I can't be playing Spider-Man when I'm 30. They should just let Miles take over. When the actor's quoting Miles, how does he even know who Miles Morales is? When the actor's talking about Miles Morales, there's something going on, man. There's
I
something going on.
mean, you know, listen, they've made a lot of money with Miles. We know Miles is coming as far as live action. We know that.
Dude, when Miles comes out, it's a wrap. He's going to take over Spider-Man. I mean, that's the Spider-Man kids know about these days. He's going to take over.
I mean, Tom Holland's right though. I mean, he's getting older, and that takes a lot of energy and athleticism to do that. Even if you do have stunt stand-ins and all that, it takes a lot. You know, I think that's a foregone conclusion that he's going to come out. Now, what I'm really stoked about is the live action Static. Now that I'm gonna be on my old man get off my lawn tip when that comes out. They better do that right.
Milestone coming out with its own cinematic universe cannot be understated how significant that is.
It'll be very significant.
Because the same brothers that are putting out these quality books now, I just gotta say Reggie Hudlin. I mean, in Reggie I trust. You say in Kevin Feige I trust. In Reggie Hudlin I trust. I know he's gonna have those films on point.
Yeah.
And creating. I mean, can we think about this for a second? We're talking about a franchise of movies of Black superheroes characters. I mean, when did we have that when you and I were coming up?
Didn't.
We didn't. When did we even thought that was an inkling of a possibility? A Black superhero franchise? A big budget Black superhero franchise? That's crazy. We live in interesting times, man.
We do, and you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Not only the live action, but the animation that they're going to do.
Right. And these guys, these younger guys, man, they don't get it. They don't understand the significance of this.
I think in time they will. I think that what happens is because it was gone for so long. That's the to me that's the one of the greater sins of Milestone's demise is that it was gone for so long. It was here for like 4 strong years, and then it disappeared. But for those 4 years, though, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, now I got to be honest. I'm enjoying the hardware book, but I don't know what's going on with it. But they churning out the Rocket and Icon book and the Static book. They churn them books out. I don't know what's going on with hardware. That's like pulling teeth. I'm like, we're getting an issue once every other month. I'm trying to figure it out, bro. I'm trying to figure it out why we're not getting these books like we're getting these other books. But anyway, that's just my pet peeve about that. Glad to know that
Rich needs his fix, Milestone. Rich needs his fix.
Help me out here. Good news is we're going to get Blood Syndicate in 2022.
Yeah.
Bad news is they have not attached Ivan Velez to it. Shout out to my man Amir, who shared that news with me. That he has not been contacted. He has no dealings with this relaunch, which I think is unfortunate. But in Reggie, I trust. So I trust that Reginald Hutton will do what is necessary to put a dope team together on that book. Because if that book is not fire, I'm going to roast Miles. I'm sorry. But
You always out here ready to roast people, man. Trying to take flamethrowers at people.
And look, I'm ready to barbecue somebody. Y'all. I'm ready to fire up the pit and go in on somebody because y'all, you know what I'm saying? It's like I thought I was gonna be able to fire up the pit when I read that Nubia. When I looked at it, I read it.
Man.
Okay, better. It's better. Shout out to Vita Ayala. I mean, it's better. All right, Vita, go on, girl.
Vita ain't listening to you, dude.
I know. but I just think that Milestone set the bar so high,
Yes,
and these books have to be legitimate if they're going to be around. If all the litigation, all the drama that went on behind the scenes, if you don't deliver, you know what I'm saying, it's almost like should have just stayed dead. And it just been something that we could have just like thought about. What if Milestone comes back? You know, but now that these books are back, I'm glad. I'm really, really glad. You know what I'm saying? But can I get my hardware fixed a little bit better? Please. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, but we'll see. We'll see. We got a lot of good stuff coming up, man. Not mad at it. 2022 is promising to be a dope year for sure. So it's comics.
DC's gonna be doing some things for Black History Month, man. It's kind of interesting.
Well, you know,
playing catch up.
We can't count Marvel out. You know what I'm saying? We'll see if Storm keeps a role as Regent of Saul. Sword. That's a doggone shame. She has to get a book outside of her X-Men title. Anyway, you know what? We it's time to go, Paul. I'm starting to get tripped.
Rich is just thoroughly dissatisfied, man. Thoroughly dissatisfied.
I'm just saying, man. I mean, you know, the most beautiful Black female character is at Marvel, and I just want her to get the shine she's supposed to get. That's all. The Sword books are okay. They're okay. But this is another character that should have her own book. I mean, I would love to see Storm do a run, or just whether it's her, Monica Rambeau, or her and Shuri, or her and Riri Williams, her and Misty Knight. You know, I mean, just give us something. Did you see the other cover for that?
I didn't care about the other cover. That's why I'm showing you this one. I didn't even promote the other cover on my Black Comic pre-orders. I hated that cover so bad.
Yeah,
that cover was disrespectful. Peach Momoko, who's the artist, she can't draw Black people well. She can't draw Black people well. I've yet to see. She had a barely passable blade on Avengers cover that she did. She's just not good at drawing Black people. I'm just gonna call her out on that. But this right here, Leno Francis Yu, whom I've met at a con and got signatures from, it's a dope cover. Yeah. And well, this has been out for a minute. Did you get this?
No, I left it at the shop when I went to a shop a couple of days ago. I saw it, then I just left it because I saw the other cover.
Let me give you a spoiler. Let me give you a spoiler because it's been out a week now. So this is the final page. Look who pops up.
Monica. Okay.
Monica Rambeau.
Okay. That's what's up.
So now you know what that means. I got to get the next issue.
So Monica Rambeau, Misty Knight are in the new Spider-Man book. Wow.
This is just a dope book, by the way. It says Spider-Man and he's on the cover, but it's really just Misty and Colleen White. This is a Daughters of the Dragon book. In
Yeah,
much
yeah.
the same way, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 16 was a Monica Rambeau book,
Right.
not a Spider-Man book.
Mhm.
This is the Daughters of a Dragon book.
Okay.
So I'm
Maybe-
hoping that Monica pop up on the last page means she'll be on the next issue too, because I've pre-ordered it.
I was gonna say maybe they bringing them back, so that would be good. That
Let
would
me
be
tell
good.
you, the
Yeah,
fact
more.
that Monica Rambeau is not at this point, there's just no excuse for Monica Rambeau to not be in comics right now. She's been in the MCU now.
Yeah. Well, she's been it's funny, the she's been in Spider-Man books. She was in the symbiote
No,
Spider-Man.
I get that. I'm saying in a regular series, like she should be move her to the Avengers or something. I mean, do something with her.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Every other character who's in the MCU is in a regular Marvel comic right now. Every other character except Monica Rambeau.
Well, it is what it is. So
I don't
maybe
like that.
maybe something will come out of it. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. I mean, it's Marvel. See, that's one reason why I'm trying to divest. They play these games, man. Get tired of these games they be playing. Like, Blade is another character. Blade has been in a lot of books. I don't think people realize how many books Blade has been in. Blade has had like 3 or 4 different volumes, runs of his own book. Blade is in Doctor Strange books. Blade has been in Avengers books. He's been on a team called Strike Force.
Hell, he's been in X-Men.
Yeah, been in X-Men. I mean, he's been in a lot of books. It's a character that they use from time to time, but they don't think enough to just like use him, give him his own title. You know, I'd love to see do Blade. Rodney Barnes.
Man, did we talk about that with him in a live?
It may have come up, but I know I would, because I'm like, and I'm like, did we ask him about that? I don't think we did. We talked vampires for sure, but I don't think that we talked about him doing a Blade book. But either way, speaking of Rodney Barnes, we're gonna get the first Blackula book in spring.
Yeah.
So we got that to look forward to as well. But yeah. But I mean, again, Marvel has this roster. DC got a bigger roster. Herschel's favorite DC character, Mal Duncan. They're not using him. I don't even think they're using Bumblebee.
No.
So there's a lot going on for sure. Well, look, man, it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock your time. So
12 my time.
Roll this up, wrap this up.
Got work tomorrow. Got bills to pay.
Oh, that's right. Oh, man. So everybody out there, I want to thank y'all for watching. I know we did this on YouTube, so you guys will get to watch the replay on this. But look forward to us doing more YouTube content. So we get our YouTube footing under us. We start, incorporating you guys in the chat. We'll be able to chop it up like we do on the Facebook Lives. But we're going to be doing more content for our website.
If you want more and better content from us, please like and subscribe to the channel. Like this video, subscribe to our channels, and share it. That's what helps us get better.
Exactly. So anyway, from Paul and myself, we want to thank you, Black Comic Lords, Black Superheroes Forever. We love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Stay black. Till next time. Peace.
Deuces.
Oh, yeah. We got one other word. Black cotton. We out.
Black cotton. And T'Challa matters. That's going viral. I'm making that go viral. T'Challa matters.